This is Ryan. It's May 6th, 2016, and I said that I was going to take a little retirement from social media for a while until this came out, and this would bring me out of retirement quick. Now, I've given up on the political system, and I honestly think the elections are rigged, and I've been right about just about every prediction I've made, especially about pot legalization and about presidential elections. Back in 2008, I asked Obama to keep his word on legalizing medical cannabis and decriminalizing it anyway, and he didn't. But I knew he wouldn't. And before he even took office, I asked him to keep his promises. And then by 2011, 2 years after he was in office, he had 6,100% more federal indictments for medical marijuana than George Bush did in all of his 8 years of president. So I knew that was going to happen. I predicted that one. With I-502, I had predicted everything that happened in I-502. Russ Belville here, the guy's a total shill, and made all these promises about what medical cannabis would be like after SB 5073, and that it wouldn't. Then I-502 came along. He said it would never affect medical cannabis. It's that's not what it's meant for. And of course, I was right about SB 5073. He was saying all these promises were going to take place, and I recorded his little broadcast of him promising it. And these words.
And it even has an explicit paragraph. What I've always been saying, you need a "this doesn't change existing medical marijuana laws" paragraph written in boldface letters. Remember me saying that? Here's their paragraph. Nothing in this chapter or in the rules adopted to implement it preclude a qualifying patient or designated provider from engaging in the private, unlicensed, non-commercial production, possession, transportation, delivery, or administration of cannabis for medicinal use as authorized under the law.
Anyway, and like I say here, it doesn't take a prophet to know when the government is trying to screw you. They are always trying. And that's what I was trying to get across to people, especially Russ Belville, who was trying to be a big voice in Washington. He'd never been to Washington that I know of, and certainly didn't live there, but he was certainly doing everything he could to change laws there. And I lived there. I had been there for 13 years. I was one of the first people to get a cannabis recommend in Washington back in 1999, 2000, I guess. And I worked on the original I-692, getting signatures when I was a homeless kid. So, for him to come in there and start pushing these bullcrap laws that he's saying won't change medical cannabis, well, ask anybody in Washington what both SB 5073 and I-502 have done to medical cannabis in Washington. They're shutting down medical dispensaries right and left. People are still going to jail for cannabis, especially medical patients. Lots of tyranny. They say it's legal. Legal only means the government has more control. It doesn't mean more freedom. It means more control. Anyway, and my retirement might end because I heard this. And now I don't think it's 100%. I mean, I don't even think Trump's considering it, because I think Ron Paul wouldn't even vote for Trump, personally. That's my opinion. I don't think Ron Paul and Trump are on the same ideology. But my philosophy here is that if Trump named Ron Paul as a vice president or secretary of state, I'm all in on a Trump ticket. A Trump Ron Paul ticket, I'm in. It would be a compromise. Certainly, I'm not even supporting Trump now. I'm supporting Gary Johnson. But if Trump got a Ron Paul ticket going, as a vice president or a secretary of state, I'm all in. But what I found interesting, this is another thing about Russ Belville. I don't even know where he is. I think he's done. I mean, maybe he's still around, but he got fired from NORML after Ganja John threatened me, and I got proof of that. Within a week after Ganja John threatened me, his co-host, they took him off the NORML radio, the NORML live show or whatever. But anyway, this is what Russ Belville says about Bernie Sanders being the first presidential candidate to support marijuana.
For now, let us just bask in the glory of a leading candidate for president of the United States, the first one that I'm aware of from the Democratic or Republican Party, to signify he would vote to legalize marijuana.
And see, he knows that's wrong. Me and him had this discussion already back this is one that I had put up a while back about when Normal fought for real liberty, an interview with Ron Paul. This is when Normal and Ron Paul were on the same ticket for legalizing cannabis. Let's see, where is that? Oh, that's right. I got it open in another window here. See, this is when Russ and I talked about it, and Russ hung up on me. He told me he would give me an uninterrupted 2 minutes to discuss this with him regarding I-502, and we started talking about Ron Paul. He says, who's going to, help if Sensible Washington fails? And I said, well, we need to support Ron Paul because he's going to legalize cannabis. This was back February 24th, 2012, and I'll put a link to that so you can see right there. Put a link to that in the video description. These bit.ly links are case sensitive, so just
gets rid of marijuana laws and doesn't replace them with anything else. If they have only stuck their ground and gotten behind that, the rest of the public would have voted for it. That's your theory.
Well, I think that it would have helped if they would have got behind the initiatives years before that have gotten hundreds of thousands of signatures with no big money. And if they would have said, hey, we believe in what these people are doing, and they didn't have any initiatives back then, if they would have just lent their support to it and got more people on board, like the Democratic Party and others who actually did endorse it, but ACLU neglected their duty to stand up for civil liberties by not endorsing those.
Okay, so then and again, let me see if I've got the operating theory here correct. When it comes to us, the people who've been working in marijuana law reform, who are the professionals who've actually gotten things on the ballot and gotten the money and gotten the support to actually put things on the ballot, if they had instead turned their time, resources, and attention to the plan floated by the people who've never gotten anything on the ballot, then the best of possible outcomes would have happened and we'd have magical legalization. But if we go with what we're going with now, the worst of possible outcomes will happen, and the prohibitionists will have won. Have I got it straight?
No, I think it's like Ron Paul. Okay, Ron Paul didn't have a lot of support in 2008. And by the way, when I started listening to Normal, it was after I first heard an interview with Ron Paul on the Normal Stash.
Cool.
And that's what got me interested in the Normal show. But listen, he didn't have a lot of support in 2008, but he didn't flex and bend and lick his own ass to get people's support. He stood his ground.
Right.
And now he's getting 4 times the support that he had last time. And that's how you build support. You hold your ground. You say, hey,
Anyway, so we talked about it. Russ Belville knows that Ron Paul, a major presidential candidate who had a ton of support, the election's obviously always fixed. Like I've always said, we don't have a chance at electing who we want, via a democratic process. I think it's all rigged. But Ron Paul had huge amounts of support, was a major presidential candidate, had been in Congress for 30 years, and he supported cannabis legalization long before Bernie Sanders did, all the way back to 1988. There's a whole bunch of references you can see about Ron Paul supporting legalization all the way back to 1988. But my point is that these people lie, and that's right here. This is the interview with Ron Paul and Normal before Russ Belville took over and started making this a liberal, progressive, shill fest. But he knew that. Now he's saying that that Bernie Sanders is the first presidential candidate in either the Republican or the Democrat Party to support legalizing cannabis. That's absolutely wrong, and he knows it. It's not that he doesn't know it. It's just that he's lying. See. Oh yeah, see right here. Ron Paul was supporting Normal all the way back in 1988. And the Morton Downey show, he got on national television and just ripped the drug war. And anyway, this is something that I thought was hilarious. At the end of this,
it's a dream come true for what?
Let's see if I can find. This is where Ian Moody got frustrated with me because I was right about what happened with I-502 and SB 5073. And Ian Moody ran for Congress. And anyway, he got all pissed off because I was right that all of these things that I said was going to happen with SB 5073 happened. And then with I-502, same thing. Medical dispensaries getting shut down, people getting locked up for decades. Still, even though they say it's legal, there's still an endless amount of tyranny. DUIs are abundant, like a 68% rise in DUI arrests for medical cannabis or people with cannabis in their system. From before I-502 till after, there's been a 68% rise in arrests for DUID, which in my opinion is a lot worse than a possession ticket. DUID is pretty serious. Anyway.
Congratulations, ex-cannabis, Ryan. You were right about 5073. That's your big victory, right? You're a prophet, aren't you? You're a prophet, ex-cannabis.
Either you're playing dumb or it's not an act.
And that's the thing, is that either these people are playing dumb or it's not an act. I imagine that Russ Belville is playing dumb. Ian Moody, I don't think it was an act. I think he's just an idiot. But Russ Belville knows better. Russ Belville knows better. And for him to say this blows me away. I mean, how he can just pull a straight-faced lie out of his pocket and broadcast it.
Think through this war on drugs.
Marijuana to find out a lot more are pursuing.
We will teach.
Anyway, that's all I got to say. I hope Russ Belville doesn't come back. If he's still around, he may still be broadcasting, but I know he's not broadcasting on his typical channels. And I kind of lost interest a while back, but I know that like his Russ Belville show.
My name is Rap.
Yeah, see, 1 year ago was his last video. So I hope that he's gone because he lies so blatantly. I mean, bold-faced lies, saying that, you know, Bernie Sanders is the first presidential candidate to support legalization, or the first major presidential candidate to support legalization. Oh my God. I've educated Russ. I was on air with him educating Russ about Ron Paul's stance on legalizing marijuana. Chris Goldstein, who came before Russ on normal radio, educated Russ on that fact, or educated Normal on that fact, because he had an interview with Ron Paul, and Ron Paul emphatically supported legalization. And anyway, so I'm going to post this link. You'll see where Ganja John, Russ Belville's co-host, threatened me, and then literally a week later, they lost their show on Normal, and so I think that put an end to Russ's career. Let's see, yeah, and then they put this out too. This was another thing, but they really ripped Sensible Washington, another legalization group, but they totally lambasted them and just, you know, tore them apart. And, you know, you think they were supposed to be on the same team and all that, but Russ and Normal in general has not acted like that. Let's see. Yeah, I'll give you a link. In fact, it should be on this screen right now, where Ganja John, Russ Belville's shill co-host, threatened me online, and then it was right after that they lost their show. Anyway, peace out. I hope there is a Trump Ron Paul ticket. That's the only way I would support Trump. The only way. If it happens, if there's a Trump Ron Paul ticket, if Trump's going to make Ron Paul Secretary of State, or if Trump's going to make Ron Paul Vice President, I'm in on a Trump ticket. Peace out.